We can start.
Okay,
I
we're
think
live.
Brian has the Darth Vader voice going on. I can kind of hear
Yeah,
something.
it's the Darth Vader voice, Brian. Do you have headphones on? Because
Yeah,
sometimes it's
he's given the thumbs up. He's given us the 1 second
okay.
signal. So, um, Jenny, Andy is not on. I'm sorry, Andrea is not on. Are we expecting her joining us?
She is supposed to be joining us, but
Okay.
we can, we'll start. We'll skip that part of the agenda.
Okay.
And we'll just move right along. And then when she joins, because I'm not sure what she'll even have for us anyway, like if anything.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much she got to catch up or did you get
Right.
to minutes?
I did send them this morning, right when you sent me that email address, but I didn't hear anything back from her. So
Okay.
they didn't bounce. So I know it went somewhere, but I'm not sure if she was able to access them.
Yeah. So that's fine. All right. So what was
So we have attendance and guest introduction. So we have Karen on, Sean, Brian, myself, Jenny, and Andy. Brian is cloning himself and going to, I think, use his phone for audio is my guess. So
sure. Okay.
So we lose the Darth Vader.
Right.
And there are no guests that I can see, and I do not see any attendees in the waiting room or in the list.
Rich should be joining us.
Rich just signed on, but he's not connected to video or audio yet, so maybe we'll just give him one more minute.
Okay, yeah, because he actually thought the meeting was yesterday. He got a day ahead of himself, and I was actually at the salon when he texted me trying to get into the meeting.
Oh, hi, Rich. I'm not sure if you can hear us. I can see that you're unmuted, but we don't hear you. And we don't see you. We just see your name.
Rich, can you hear us? Can you give a thumbs up if you can hear us? Or we can't see you. Can you join with audio? If you can hear me?
Okay. Well, maybe we can just
we can just get started.
We can just get started. If he pops up that we can see him or hear him, then we can have him join us. So we have the approval of the meeting minutes for September, which I sent, I believe, the week before last or last week. So we need
a motion. We can approve the minutes for September if anyone wants to second that.
Second.
Okay.
Right.
Minutes approved. All in favor?
Minutes of no corrections. Great. So we will skip the ADA coordinator and we'll go on to the accessible playground update. I have not heard back on any updates. I believe it was scheduled to be on the last Parks Commission agenda, and I have not heard how that went. So we will follow up. It sounded to me like the Parks Commission was, oh, hi, Andy. Attempting to finalize their agendas, and I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, so maybe next month we'll hear more, hopefully.
Right.
Okay, and then the next was what, the ADA grant? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So the deadline for submission is tomorrow, and I did get to catch up with Nancy London today. So there was a little bit of confusion on my part in that last I knew we were applying for that section of street by the parking garage. But as it turns out, MOD had strongly suggested against it because it wouldn't be a very competitive project. So what we're actually applying for this round is the intersection of of Market Square, the firehouse, which we've definitely talked about in the past. It's definitely been on the radar. We'd like to see it done. So I'm fine with that. And if they feel that's a more competitive project, then I'm definitely good with that. But that's kind of the update on that. Kristen, I don't know if you got to look at that email I sent you a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I did. And I was just going to see if I could pull it up and share my screen, but I think that might be a little bit more clumsy. But I did look at it. The two concerns, not concerns, the two questions that I had were that it stated that it would be for creating a ramp and an APS crossing unit at Market Square and the firehouse. Isn't there already a ramp there? That's already a bricked walkway with a railing and a ramp down to the crossing.
There is, but because of the way the pole is positioned, and this is actually why it's been like something that hasn't gotten to yet, because it's kind of a bigger project than it would appear.
Okay. That's right. I remember that with the electrical pole.
And they're going to have to actually tear up and rework the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's why they would have to include that additional work with the ramp. They'll have to read the whole thing.
That was my like, well, why would they choose that as a project when we already have something there, even though it might not be ideal? And then my only other question was that the project scope was listed at 100,000 and the grant request was listed for 100,000. And my understanding of the grant parameters were that the city, although they did list in-kind contribution with the work of and the electrical and all of that, that amount came to like, I think it was listed at 20,000. So my understanding of the grant was it was almost like we had to, I don't know what the percentages are for the grant parameters for our contribution, but that was my only little like,
well, I wonder then if it's just 20% or something. I don't know. And
maybe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but,
so hopefully.
Basically though, the rub is that it's tomorrow. So she was just finishing it up today. There's not, it's not like we're going to change anything. Nothing's changing. Right. So we have to, wait and see and wait to hear back from MOD once they start going through their applications. I don't know the timeline for that, but we'll find out,
Right.
So, I mean, maybe it would be a good idea to sort of put together a bit of a task for the following year and really get started a lot sooner. And maybe we could talk to the mayor about that, because it would be nice to really get to utilize this grant for a really, long-awaited project that needs that attention. So I think we just are short every year. We're too last minute.
Yeah, I think, I don't think, I'm just glancing quickly at the minutes from last month, but it might have been the meeting before that. But I think we had talked and, we had actually mentioned with Andy Port's comment also just to kind of collaborate with like how DPS is budgeting, but that they're 3 years out, so that would be great to kind of get everything lined up so we could better utilize all funds together and access these grant monies. That would make a bigger impact.
It would be advantageous of us to start a conversation and ask the mayor to initiate a meeting with the pertinent department heads or whatever, more in advance than when we find out it, or not even just that we find out. I mean, we know that that it's always August to October. We know that's the window. It's off the radar until I get that email in August, and that's when I email Nancy and the mayor and we start talking about it. But it's still pretty last minute, because we're only talking about it in the window of the application time being open, which is kind of silly. We should probably really try to
if we could be a little more proactive, that would be good.
Yeah, if we could just more in advance so we can get a real project accomplished. I mean, not that Market Square wouldn't be a great project to get accomplished. But I feel like we're scrambling every year to come up with an idea, and then it sort of, you know, gets haphazardly pasted together, you know. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind for early 21, to just start having a conversation about it a lot sooner than August. But we'll keep our fingers crossed for this project anyway, in this grant round. So yeah. Okay.
Right. Good. So the next on our agenda is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Don't say that 3 times fast.
Right.
Also known as CPAC. So.
Yeah, I still haven't heard back from the 2 chairpersons for that group. So I don't know if it's just maybe this is a busy time of year for them or what. But I still think it's important that we try to connect with them and see how we might collaborate or help them. So I don't know, Kristen, you mentioned attending one of their meetings recently.
I did attend the last meeting, but not yesterday's meeting. They had a meeting yesterday that I was not able to attend. So I will put that on my radar for their next meeting and see.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's a great idea to keep on our radar.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to add, because there's not a ton of stuff on this agenda, and I took it off the agenda because I hadn't gotten any news about the Aspen portal for parents through the school not being very accessible with screen readers and things like that.
Nobody likes Aspen.
Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes Aspen.
Staff.
Sean's shaking his head. Andy's shaking his head. Karen's shaking her head. I mean, Andrea, her head. Yeah. Oh, I saw Rich for a second.
I actually did get a call from, I think her name is Nancy Koch, who works in the superintendent's office. And she was letting me know that they actually, she's still waiting to hear back from the IT people at Aspen, but she's still following up with it. And I was kind of surprised. I mean, and she called me on a weekend, so it's on her radar, and she's definitely doesn't want to, let it be. So
Great.
I think it's just a matter of waiting to hear, so, which is, fine. It's not like Aspen is going anywhere, but it's good to know that it's on her radar still, and she feels it's important. So that's a bonus for us, because then she's going to be on top of it and let me know when she does hear back from them finally and all of that. So, I mean, I would propose that if there's nothing that can be done about it, I would really like to approach the school committee or Sean Gallagher about finding another app, because it's not accessible, and that's not acceptable. So
yeah, I don't really know enough about it as a portal. I use it literally once a year to find out.
Me too, but I can't use it.
Right. But I think it does have a lot of functionality that maybe just the city doesn't use much, because they have other things for other things, other apps for other things. But I do think I did a random Google search once trying to log in, and I ended up in like the Aspen portal for some other state in some other town. And I was like, oh, this is not right.
Right.
So it's widely used by schools.
Yes, it is.
by the looks of it, but
I'm actually, and because of that, I do have some hopes that maybe just being a squeaky wheel with their IT people, that they'll actually go in and correct it. Right. Because that's a win across the board. It's not going to improve the site tremendously for all its problems, but having
Andy Egmont is on and wanted to add, I think.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that I think you have a really great partner in Nancy Koch, if you haven't worked with her yet. She's the new head of special ed.
Okay.
She's amazing. And
yeah, she seems great. She seems
on the weekend is absolutely her style. But what I was going to say is, and I know you guys know this, but the schools are just, the fact that she even had it on her radar is unbelievable to me, because they are they're just in it so deep right now.
Oh, I know. And
but
that was kind of why I felt really good about getting the phone call from her, because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I know that this is like, I mean, minuscule on their radar. I mean, it's not, there's so much going on, obviously. So I was pretty impressed by that. And I didn't know she was new in that position or anything. I just had chatted on the phone with her about twice now. But she seems so super dedicated, and she was in such agreement that, it seems like it's something that she wants to pursue because it's the right thing to do, which is fantastic. It's a little thing, but if it does get actually addressed, then that becomes huge, So, huge kudos to her if she finds out anything, because it's kind of like, trying to get your money back for the candy bar that didn't have enough nuts in it, like from the company, like, they don't care. But if she gets any answers, that's phenomenal. So I just, like I said, it wasn't on the agenda because I didn't hear from her, but I did after I made the agenda. So I figured I'd bring it up and just, it's actually still, on the radar. So that's, Andy's 100% right. It's kind of it's pretty amazing. So yeah, thank you. And thank you for vouching for her, because I haven't really worked with her yet. I haven't met her in person or anything like that, and probably won't, but working with her just on the phone a few times on this she just definitely left me feeling very confident, that it wasn't just falling on deaf ears because it's a small thing. So yeah, so that was good.
Jenny, maybe this would be a good time to introduce Andrea Egmont, since everyone's probably like, who is this person and what is she doing here? So we can give everyone the heads up that unfortunately Bob Armstrong is no longer in the building department and is no longer our ADA coordinator. And so acting ADA coordinator Andrea Egmont, who's also the head of youth services and I believe the former chair of our commission.
Well, right? She was the former ADA coordinator.
Oh, okay. Former ADA coordinator. Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah. So
she's worn this hat before, and we're very appreciative to have her jump in and fill in the gap, because we can't really function without that position being, appointed on someone. So thank you, Andy, very much.
It looks like you're muted, Andrea, so we can't hear.
No, I'm happy to jump in and do it. It's something I obviously care about, and I think it's just really important to have somebody, in the city that's connected to the stuff as well. So I'm happy, like everyone else, these are crazy times and our plates are very full, but anything that I can do to help the commission, you just let me know.
Great, thank you. Do you know, did they hand over any updates at all with you? Or no, I didn't think so.
I think things happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I do know that I reviewed the grant funding or the grant application briefly. They kind of brought me up to speed on that before I had to sign off on it as an ADA coordinator.
Here, will you put your autograph on this?
Good thing I know Nancy and I trust her. No, but I did look that over, but there's been nothing else. So I did look at your minutes from your last meeting, so I had an idea of some of the things that you have going on, and I had actually tried to do a little looking about the Aspen program because it is so widely used. It makes me think that there's probably a piece to it, but I mean, that's assuming that other communities are actually doing what they're supposed to do too. So, but I know the IT piece of it is actually, I don't even think it's in-house. So it's probably like, there's different modules, there's all different pieces to it. And so I think it would probably be almost best to like write up what the issues are that it's not capable of doing, and just send it to I'm gonna assume it's Don Skane who works directly. He's the head of technology for the school department, and just say, can you forward this to your contact at Aspen and get answers?
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but just so you're up to speed on it, my conversation with Nancy Koch, I was pretty concise about what the issue was that I had found.
Yeah.
And she, fully understood it. So she was able to articulate what the specific issue was. Mm-hmm. And she was communicating with both the in-house IT team as well as Aspen.
Okay, great. Yeah, I didn't know if it was easier to skip over and go right to the person, but you already got them, so that's great.
Yeah, she went right to them. So, yeah, no, like I said, I was pretty impressed with her jumping on it the way she did, and actually calling me back with, whatever she, had, even though it wasn't really, any answers, but just to let me know she hadn't forgotten, which was phenomenal. So, basically, though, what I would say is that it would be a good idea if Tony Fenari's back from his surgery break. I think that's what he was on leave for, with surgery. There was a bunch of stuff that we were waiting on him to sort of find out about with certain corners and curb cuts. Specifically, if you see in the minute, you'll see in the minutes, there's a curb on Middle Street on the corner of Center and Middle that is obnoxiously large. And somebody had actually taken a photograph of it and sent it to Bob Armstrong last year, with some sort of like, what kind of joke is this? Where's the accessibility? Because it really is like a double height curb, which it's always been there. It's this big honking granite curb that for some reason, I don't know if the street has just settled in front of it, but it's significant. It's got to be a good foot of a step. So Tony had mentioned that wasn't, anywhere in their schedule, and that, it could be costly.
Jenny, I think, just glancing at the last minutes, I think last month Bob did say that it was in the queue for DPS, but we didn't know where.
Okay.
So I think that's what my notes say. I'm just relying on what I have written down. So
no, that makes sense.
But I don't think we had any sort of timeline of when that would be or how.
No, I think what he was going to find out, to try to get a cost estimate, if it's something that isn't going to be done anytime soon because of the cost, that maybe that's something that we could help out with, was what we had discussed. And he was basically waiting to talk to Tony about that particular corner. And then there was also conversation about the bottom of Boardman Street, and I think it was the bottom of Oakland, but the Oakland Street project was something that was already happening.
Ashland.
Yes. Right. Thank you.
Ashland's in process, and the other one was
the bottom of Boardman, because they're working on the top of Boardman intersection, but the bottom is atrocious, which Lisa has pointed out because she lives on. And it's pretty bad, and there's a lot of foot traffic there for the crossing, just to where it leads you. So there was a couple things we were kind of waiting to hear from Tony on, with a couple those things. So if you get an idea from the minutes, you can kind of maybe try to catch up with him and see what he says. Andrea.
Sorry, I was muted.
She was
muted.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that. I'm out tomorrow, but I'll do it next week, early next week.
That's fine. I mean, these things are old problems, so they're not going anywhere.
So I think that's pretty much all of our agenda, unless anyone has anything for new business or other public comment. Since we're the only public here, we can publicly comment to ourselves.
Yeah, I did want to ask Karen, what do you, as a new member, how are you feeling?
So far, this is really interesting. It's been great to observe. And I love that, you know, nothing seems to fall through the cracks, you know?
Right.
We
yeah.
claw them very tightly out of the cracks.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And feel free to plug me in, you know, if there's something that, you know, you just feel like everybody's got their, you know, they're juggling too many plates. I'm happy to just plug me in, point me in a direction, and I'll take off.
Great. Yeah. And you know, I mean, if there's anything you want to bring up, if there's things you see, if there's, you know, things you've thought about in the past, I mean, you know, any of your experiences, with, you know, just raising your son and your experiences within the city, if there, you know, I mean, anything that comes up, bring it up. That's, you know, what we do. I mean, we basically are just, you know, kind of, we just try to keep our ears and eyes open and consider our own experiences. And we are a unique commission in that way because of the membership requirement and criteria. You know, we're in a little bit of a unique position in that, you know, we really do draw a lot from our own experiences in the city. And it gives us a little bit of an inside view more than it might just the average person. That's why we're all here. So, you know, I'm hoping that you're getting comfortable and will be comfortable bringing things up, or if there's something you want to take initiative on, you know, anything like that. I mean, you know, you're official now, so don't hesitate to bring anything up. And okay. You can always
Brian's applauding on mute. He's mutedly applauding.
I do have one question for you, and some of these things I don't know. This particular thing I don't know if it is, you know, within the purview of this group. But having a hearing impaired son that worked in various places downtown, I wonder if there is a way to reach out to employers who employ the high school kids to have an awareness of that some of these kids are disabled, and that there are ways to accommodate. The kids are generally pretty good about advocating for themselves, but it really does depend on the audience. And I just think that some employers just don't have quite the awareness.
No, and I 100% agree. My experience, to speak to that, is definitely just my interactions with staff at various businesses, and you know, there's definitely a lot of lack of awareness. And this is actually something that we have talked about in the past. We've tried to sort of brainstorm a way to communicate awareness to the business community. So that's something that we can definitely talk more about. And if you have on it, we can talk.
Perfect.
You know, so you have my email address, so you can email me anytime and we can talk about whatever.
I think we might have some success if we kind of tap into the Chamber of Commerce for something like that. You know, things like that. So that sounds like a good idea.
I was going to say the Chamber, great. We've done a number of trainings for employees. And we've actually done a couple around accommodations, but more around mental health and addiction. But we have some great HR folks in town as well. So it could be a really interesting thing to tie it in with some other stuff. Sometimes you need the draw, you know, to get them in. So like the last time we did one, it was around addiction. It was kind of at the height of the opioid epidemic. I don't know what. Yeah. When my brain just stopped for a second.
Crisis.
Thank you. And we had a panel, and it was great. So, I mean, that is definitely the event, you know, an event that could be done. Hopefully we'll get back to being able to do events.
Yeah. Something like that would be fantastic for sure.
Yeah. And like you tie it in with other HR things that people need, and suddenly you kind of have this captive audience. The other thing that I was just going to say, going back to the CPAC thing, is, I don't know if everyone, I don't know who's aware of this, but there is a group in Newburyport called Differently Wired. So it's parents of differently wired kids. And so I know that you had suggested or talked about the possibility of starting another group. Youth Services actually now has a number of, we don't really call them support groups, we call them affinity clubs, people who just share an experience. Not everybody wants to be part of a support group. But I think the idea of parents with disabilities would be a really interesting one that I as Youth Services would be interested in taking on.
Yeah.
We work with CPAC, but I actually think that with the schools and connecting with the counselors, we could really get the word out. Like we have a group for grandparents raising grandkids now. We have a young people of color affinity group. We have our AGLI we're trying to get going again. So we're always kind of adding to those things. So I loved that idea when I saw it in the minutes, and I think would be a really,
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's born of my own struggles, and you know, I can't imagine I'm the only one.
absolutely.
So, you know, that's
and I
definitely,
also think having it outside the school is a safer place sometimes for parents. I think that you have some people who don't necessarily want to feel like they're bringing that part of them into school, into their school relationship, but Youth Services is a little separate from that. So just putting on my Youth Services hat for a minute, but I definitely think that's what we could look at moving forward.
Yeah, keep, you know, we can talk about that definitely, because that's fantastic. Because I don't know where to begin with trying to organize something like that, you know. So, you know, that's great. That's good.
Jenny, I just had a thought related to Karen's question about the businesses downtown and that sort of thing. Brian worked diligently with the app that I'm drawing a blank on what it is called. Well, it was Access Navigator. That's right. So Brian, do you think that might be a good place to kind of somehow link that in with inclusion and awareness, and might that somehow fit in some way? I'm just thinking of a way that it could be that, you know, everybody wants to do the right, well, let's hope that in general people want to do the right thing, and they want to be inclusive, and they want to be accessible, and they want to, you know, do the right thing. So if an entity is hiring a kid with a disability, not to give them the like yay for you, but how that can, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like, but how it could kind of tie into them being like, look, we're inclusive. We're an inclusive employer. We're an accessible employer. We're an inclusive employer, and we're willing to accommodate in whatever way we can. I mean, Market Basket is a great example of that. They clearly have a big range of employees with different abilities, and I mean, I don't know that they need any sort of round of applause for it. They just do it because it's the right thing to do. But I'm just thinking in terms of that particular app, that maybe there would be some way to kind of connect with the business population in that way.
Well, it would certainly give us a good starting point list of businesses that are access minded.
True.
You know, but that might be as far as that takes us. You know, I mean, it might just be a good resource for us to start. But I think talking with the Chamber of Commerce would be a good place to start too, because you know, maybe it's something that we put together an awareness seminar, and businesses sign up, and you know, we still have those window decals, Friends of the Newburyport Commission on Disabilities, that we never got to use for anything.
Forgot about those.
I still have them. So maybe that's something, you know, we can kind of explore that idea a little bit more. So
Great.
We'll definitely have that on the agenda moving forward for sure. I think that's a good sound idea to work on something like that. or maybe, you know, we could, you know, maybe an idea is putting together a comprehensive sort of list of tips for employers to, you know, help them better serve their disabled employees. We could even look at some of the stuff through the feds and the state. I mean, there's a lot of advocacy for people with disabilities in the workplace. So there's a lot of stuff that we could probably draw from resource-wise in terms of sharing information. So yeah, that's definitely something we can kind of get cooking, I think.
Great idea, Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up.
I think Sean was trying to chime in, but I think sometimes with the overlap, it's hard to see who's talking.
And I can't see who's trying to.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say hello to Karen. I think we worked together like 7, 8 years ago. I think I taught your daughter, if I remember correctly.
That's right. You taught my daughter Lily. Yes.
That's right, Lily. Yep.
Yes. Yes. That's great.
You're around 20 years old right now.
She is. Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Tell her I said hello.
I will. Absolutely.
Small world.
Welcome aboard.
I like that. Like the connection.
Thanks so much.
Very cool.
So it looks like Rich has been on and off video. I'm not sure if he can hear us or not.
Right.
He popped up a couple of times, but I don't see him right now.
Where are we?
So it is 5:40, and looks like we've gone through all of the agenda unless there's any new business or any other new business. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 12th at 5 o'clock, same location, same link that you all used for signing in.
Yep. Okay.
And
well, then if no one has anything else, I think we can wrap it up. Does everybody feel pretty good about this meeting?
Yep. Thumbs up.
I think we're all thumbs up.
Cool.
So we
all right.
motion to adjourn at 5:40.
A second. Meeting adjourned.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andy Port, for hosting, and thanks, Andy Agmont, for joining us.
Yes, thank you both. Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys. See you next month.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.